Hey guys, it's Donica or Nika Bunny Sings or Nika Bunny or whatever you want to call me that isn't offensive. And today we're going to be doing the Darkness Falls challenge while we tell the stories that you guys voted for, which is all of the crazy teachers I had through middle and high school. But I'm actually going to start from the very fucking beginning because I never had a fully normal roster of teachers at any given point in time in my life. You might be wondering why I'm on the second floor. That's because I already started the challenge, but I didn't like the way I started the video, so I just restarted the video, kind of, by just redoing my intro and starting over again. So, I grew up, primarily in one town, a town I probably won't name, just so I don't accidentally dox myself somehow. Like, I don't know what you would do with the information of what town I grew up in. I don't even live there anymore, but just in case. We'll call it H-Town, because there's a lot of H's, and that's what people called it, was H-Town, and it was fucking horrible. It was literally so racist, and so horrific, and so bad, and it was just, the only thing that was good about that town was that the quality of education was good. There was quite literally nothing else that made living in that town even a little bit worth it. Obviously we're going Devil Deal, because the red hearts I get, I take them away, I get the damage up, so. It only makes sense to go Devil Deals. Oh, and just so you know, heart monitor. That's what that is. But before I lived in that town that I spent most of my childhood in, I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. And I was very little when I lived in Providence, and that is where the story starts. My very first insane, crazy teacher that my parents had to talk to warn not to touch me, I think her name was Mrs. Green. I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it was Mrs. Green. And I had Mrs. Lynch, which I always called Mrs. Lunch because I was a child and fucking stupid. And they were the first two teachers I really remember having outside of like Head Start. And Mrs. Green was not normal. Now, Mrs. Lynch was pretty normal. I'd say she was a pretty normal gal. She grew up probably in not the greatest area and was teaching a bunch of kids that were either poor, misbehaved, or just not in a good area. So she did with what she had. Mrs. Green, on the other hand, was on fucking steroids or speed or something that made her just the most aggressive bitch to 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds that I have quite literally ever seen. Now, I'll give the bitch some credit, okay? There were literally children climbing the bookshelves and getting to the top of the room, and they were crazy. There were children talking about drugs. That area was not good, by any stretch of the imagination, but she would pick children up by their shirts and carry them across the room and swing them around and throw them places. I'll never forget, I wanted to go to the bathroom, so I walked around the table this way. By the way, the table's in the middle of the room. You could walk to the left or the right. And she was like, no, you're gonna walk around the table that way. And just random shit that really didn't matter. She very fucking clearly didn't like children. And so my mom called to school and was basically like, if you touch my child, ever, I'll beat your ass. And so she never really did. I think maybe that one time she wanted me to go around the table, she kind of grabbed my shirt. That was a mistake on her part, because my mother doesn't play. There's a lot of things my mother did do, but one thing she didn't do was play around with her children and other people hurting them. And the threats that she gave were not empty, so Mrs. Green learned her fucking lesson very quickly, at least with me. But it was terrifying. Being in class was horrifying, children were constantly crying, and she was insanely violent. And then one day she just sort of disappeared. So I don't know what they did with Mrs. Green, but I hope she's having the life that she deserves. Moving right along, I moved to H-Town after this. Much better town in terms of quality. Much worse people in terms of quality. And my very first teacher, my first grade... Oh, I fucking died. That's good. My first grade teacher, Mrs. Wickline, was a fucking witch. I think that's why I think her name was Mrs. Wickline to go along with the witch vibes. Because she was so fucking evil for no reason at all. And I was like, wow, we're 0 for 2 here. Well, nah, we're 1 for 3, okay? Mrs. Lynch was alright. I'll give her some credit. She was pretty cool, okay? Mrs. Wickline, it was like somebody in a Disney movie wrote her character to be a bad teacher. Like, they were like, what could I possibly do to make this bitch horrible. Guess what the bitch did after my grade left? Retired. This is going to become a trend, by the way. I want you to remember that if a teacher is bad and I had them, they probably retired afterwards. So first grade was fucking miserable for me because I was bullied to dog shit. I moved to that town. I was the only black person in my class at the time. And then shortly after, another black kid came. Didn't make a fucking difference. I was still horrifically bullied. And Mrs. Wickline couldn't have gave less of a shit if she tried. If she actually decided to join in on the bullying, it would have been less surprising than it was for how little of a fucking shit she gave at all. That there was just like severe bullying going on. She acted like the three blind mice. She couldn't do a fucking single thing apparently. She was not a good teacher. I feel like I don't remember learning much in first grade. I think my mom taught me how to read because the ghetto ass school I went to before didn't do their fucking job. And I think I was 6 or something. And that was it. Like, I don't remember anything else from first grade except for severe bullying and my teacher being literally evil and feeling fear when I went to school. And I was like, is this how school's going to be? Because this isn't great. She retired after. I hope if she's still alive that she's like fine now and maybe happier. But mayhaps don't take it out on children next time. Thank you, Mrs. Wickline, for the terror that you caused in all of us. If I go to second grade, I had a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Altavilla. She was the sweetest ever. She had some, like, sometimes she got a little annoying, but she was pretty nice overall. She cared about us. I liked her a lot. I don't think my mother liked her. So something happened. But I don't know what that something was. We're in third grade now. I had Mrs. DeConstanza. Should I be giving all my teachers' names out? Like, you probably could Google these people and figure out where I grew up. Does it really fucking matter where I grew up? It probably doesn't. Like, I had her. She was great. I think she had, well, she was okay. I think she had some incontinence issues, though, because I do remember her having frequent accidents, which stressed me out as a kid because I had a small bladder and severe panic that was obviously undiagnosed at the time. I also had accidents, not in school very much, but in general, especially during car rides, which caused me frequent, significant stress for some fucking reason. I was just terrified around her a little bit because I was scared she wasn't gonna make it again. She was fine. She was nice. She wanted me to smile more. I never wanted to smile. I was not a happy child. She was cool though, okay? Alright, so fourth grade on, it gets worse. Like, first through third grade, maybe kindergarten, yeah, having a teacher that's like throwing children by their shirts is pretty bad. But I'd actually say I think it gets significantly worse as time progresses. So fourth grade, I had a teacher who played a sport. And that's really all she did. I'm like blanking on her name because I suck. I might remember it. But she was just not a teacher. Like, I don't even know how she got the position she got. Doesn't seem like it was in a legitimate way. It doesn't seem like it made sense for her to have this position. She seemed miserable. Both in the sense that she was in a lot of pain from the sport I will fucking... This is what my dumbass gets for doing the fucking pills before I go into the devil deal. Because now it's closed for sure, and I don't get my fucking devil deal. So great, thank you for that. Fuck. God, that's so fucking... Oh. And Dark Bum? You bet your big black ass I'm taking Dark Bum. She didn't give a fuck about teaching. She was super nice. Like, genuinely, a very nice woman. She just didn't give a fuck. She couldn't have cared less. We didn't go through curriculum. I was quite literally... Why is my shirt so fucking sideways? Fucking annoying. I was quite literally behind on curriculum by the time I got to 5th grade. And everybody who had her was... because she didn't teach. And, like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, I spent most of the year in her classroom watching movies. That's it. Like, she'd put on Bill Nye the Science Guy or movies and just sit and didn't care. And honestly, as a child, I fucked with that pretty heavily. That was actually pretty cool. as a 5th grader, I was not excited to have to now learn all the shit that I didn't know because she couldn't have been fucking bothered. But she was nice, and she had red hair, which I liked. So I hope she's doing okay. I think after that year, she left, of course, and went back to the sport that she should have just kept fucking playing to begin with, which I think she stopped because she was injured or something. I don't know. I still don't understand how she got the job she got. I don't get how sports just immediately go straight into being a full-time teacher for a large number of students. But she did it, so congrats to her. She played the game and won, and I hope she's doing well. 5th grade, my main teacher was the best. Mrs. Feldman was the sweetest. Mrs. Capablo, my fucking switch teacher. So we had teachers that we would switch between. So you had your main homeroom and you had your switch room, which was like, you know, you go to the classroom next to you, and it starts to get you prepared for middle school, because middle school, you walk all around the school and whatever, you know what I mean? So the whole point was, oh, you're leaving your class to go do this thing, and then, like, you leave your class to go to gym or whatever, and that was the point. Fuck that bitch. Genuinely, I think I would hate math less if I never met her. She was so bitchy, and so mean, and also coughed up blood. And I remember it scared the shit out of me and my friend, and I was like, hey, are you okay? And she was like, I'm fine. And I was like, hey, sorry, I'm not the one coughing up blood in the hallway. Are you actually good? Because I'm concerned as an 11-year-old that you're fucking dying. Like, what's going on? Don't give me attitude because you're coughing up blood. This isn't a me problem, Capablo. This is a you problem. Why wouldn't you do this in the bathroom or somewhere private so you're not, I don't know, scaring children? Like, I'm not saying she would know that she's gonna cough up blood at any given time, but I would say, like, if you are going to do it accidentally in front of children, mayhaps don't be upset about it when a child asks you if you're okay. Maybe be like, oh, that's nice of you to actually give a fuck, because most kids wouldn't. Regardless, she accused me of cheating on a test. She accused me and my 2 friends of cheating on a test because all 3 of us got this like wildly outlandish answer, and she hated my guts. She really fucking did. So the reason why we all got the wildly outlandish answer that nobody else got is because we studied together in class. We were friends, and we all weren't good at math, and we all had the same misunderstanding that she was fucking horrific at teaching, which, by the way, holy shit, 5th grade math was horrible. Going home and trying to sit with my dad and understanding it for hours and literally crying because he's frustrated and I'm fucking frustrated because I don't get it. It was horrible. 5th grade math was fucked. I don't like math, and I honestly, I probably really didn't like 5th grade. But she thought we all cheated, so she brought all 3 of us into these things that we had called pods. Yeah, so there were these little rooms that were between the classrooms that were like a treat to go in. They were super cool, they had big windows, and they were just like super private, so if you want to just like fuck around with your friends, you could. She gives everybody a chance to talk. Except for that, she gives everybody a chance to talk, except for me last. And all 3 of us got the answer the same way because we studied together. Everybody was like, we studied together. And that's how we got the same answer. And she was like, go through your work. And the first 2 people went through their work, and she was very happy with their answers. She had no issue with their answers. And then I said, I did the same exact thing. I went through the work and got the same answers. I'm not going to go through it again. Like, you know the steps that they took. I took those steps. And she went, very likely. That sounds very likely that you would go through the same exact steps that they went through. And I was like, well, let's think about this critically, okay? So 3 friends are studying together, and 3 friends get the same wrong answer. And 3 friends that study together have the same method for getting the wrong answer. And for some reason, only 2 of the 3 friends could have possibly been actually studying together and not cheating. So she pinned it on me that I cheated. Their grade did not suffer the way mine did, and there was nothing I could have done about it. So to her, fuck you. You're a bitch. She was so mean. Like, genuinely, she wasn't even just like the kind of mean where like that's the only thing she did. She was just cruel. Like, she would go out of her way to mock me if I didn't understand things. She didn't like to help me. She was very frustrated with the idea that I was not good at math, which is so stinky stupid hey, everybody's not going to be great at math, which, by the way, every other math class I could get an A in, so this bitch was dumb. But regardless, I hope she's not coughing up blood anymore. Like, I don't wish her fucking death, but I do wish that she wouldn't have been such a fucking bitch. And I hate that she made math miserable for me. I gotta fucking keep talking about these teachers. I've been filming for 20 minutes. Okay, 6th grade. 6th grade is a smorgasbord, okay? It is a smorgasbord of bad teachers. It is literally the worst year possible. When I was in 6th grade, I had a teacher that molested me when I was 11 years old. So that takes the cake. Like, there is no teacher worse than that for me personally, for obvious reasons. He was the worst. His name was Mr. Howard, and he was a known sex offender to the school, and the school didn't do anything about it. I'm not going to go into detail because I'll actually tell that story. I don't have a problem telling that story. But I don't have time in this video because I'm only in fucking 6th grade and there's 6 more grades and there's so many more teachers. That was the worst one in 6th grade. He was the worst. Not the only bad one, just the worst one. I actually had another math teacher in 6th grade that made fun of my weight. She brought pies in. So first of all, it was ironic because she was big. And I am fat. So I don't have anything against fat people. I'm not fat phobic even if I wasn't fat, even though I am losing weight, even when I wasn't fat before because I wasn't a fat kid. So she just picked on me. But regardless, right? I don't care what you weigh. I don't have any objections to what people weigh. I'm not one of those people that pretends like I care about health and I'm really just a fat phobic piece of shit. I don't care. Genuinely. Unless you're my best friend and you're 700 pounds and you're about to die, your weight's quite literally none of my business. And I will never think anything different. I don't think people's worth is reliant on their weight, except for maybe my own, because I have, like, problems. And so it never should have come up. But she would bring in pies consistently because she was a big woman. She liked to eat, very clearly. Her and her assistant were both very large, and they brought in pies. Which is weird to do, to bring into school, but she brought in pie. And I don't like pie. I think pie's fucking gross. And I tasted an Oreo pie because everybody was like, oh, you might like this one because it tastes more just kind of like ice cream and dessert than pie. I did like the Oreo pie. It was fine. I wouldn't eat it again, but it was like, okay, this is a good little treat for like whatever the fuck is going on right now, for whatever fucking reason we're having pie in math class, which I think her excuse was like, she's teaching us fractions. Bitch, if you want to eat a pie, just be so fucking for real with yourself. Yeah, I fucked that bomb. I fuck a lot of things in this game, okay? I'm doing too many things at once. I'm talking and thinking and playing, and that's enough for me. That's 3 tasks. That's a big girl amount of tasks. Did I get the shop? I didn't. Did I want to get the shop? I guess. Why not, right? The next week, either the same week or the next week, she brings in another pie. And I don't like pie. I don't like any flavor of pie. And I just didn't want any. Didn't want the pie. She was like, you're lying. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I think I would know if I wanted pie or not. And I was a very nice, very timid child. Very kind, very well behaved, never spoke out of turn, never had an attitude. Outside of having autism and mayhaps saying things the wrong way sometimes, I was a very, very well behaved, respectful child. And teachers tended to get along with me when they weren't she-devils. So, you know, what the fuck is annoying? I'm just gonna buy the book to get rid of the heart. Oh, I can't. That's weird. Why did it not? Whatever. So, I lost my train of thought. I was like, I don't want your fucking pie, basically. And she was like, it was me and one other kid she made fun of. And she was like, well, at your size, well, because she, like, made a point, right? Because the one kid that in my class that was kind of chunky, which is horrible, by the way, she was like, that person's admitting they want the pie. She's like, and she was like, look at you. I know you want pie. She's like, I can tell that you want the pie. She's like, don't act like you don't want it. It's the kind of thing where you're trying to lose weight and you eat a salad and people tell you not to act cute. And then you eat a burger and people tell you you don't need a burger. It was that stupid shit. And I was like, I don't want the pie, regardless of my weight. I don't want your pie. And so she put the pie in front of me on my desk and continued to make fun of my weight in front of the whole class. She cut me a slice. I didn't eat the pie. I didn't want the pie. I never want pie. And it was so fucking frustrating and embarrassing, but it was also so time consuming and so much back and forth that didn't need to happen. And of course my crush at the time was sitting directly across from me, so I'm getting my ass absolutely handed to me by this teacher who for some reason thinks making fun of an 11-year-old's weight is like the thing to do. And then right in front of my crush, I was a mess. I cried after class. I was fucking miserable. And I did not get along with her for the rest of the year. Like, didn't talk to her. Tried to make sure that anytime she needed to talk to me, it was going to be miserable. Because I hated that bitch. If she needed a question answered, I was going to say I didn't know. Even if I knew the answer. I didn't give a fuck about my grade at that point. I wanted her to know she was a cunt. And that's what she was. So, again to her, I forget her name, wishing her the best in life. Please stop making fun of children if you still teach. Which, if you do, you were pretty fucking old. So I'd be shocked. I gotta keep going. 7th grade, I had another math teacher that was mean to me. I don't understand what the streak was with math teachers in middle school, because in high school, my math teachers loved me. So I don't know what happened. But 7th grade was relatively normal, outside of the fact that my math teacher didn't like me and was a bitch. And she was also insane. She would constantly talk about how her husband didn't love her, her children didn't like her and moved to China to get away from her, and she made an example out of me by giving me a detention for something that I shouldn't have had a detention for, so the rest of the class had an example. She was a bitch. I made a poem about it when I was a kid. Actually, let me see if I still have that poem. I still have this poem that was supposed to be to the tune of ABCs. I literally have this still. That I wrote, which you can tell by the way that it's like fucking font size 18, purple, with like an orange highlight. I don't know why I did that as a kid. Lopsided Sue really stinks. She makes me want to throw up in a sink. She smells like poo and tastes like dew. She has a million creepy babies and probably has rabies. Mrs. Fraser is Lopsided Sue and she will kill you. First of all, what the fuck? A little unhinged, Donica. But secondly, that's how much I hated that bitch. I made a whole shitty poem about it that my friends and I recited because we thought it was funny. It wasn't funny, it barely rhymed, it didn't even make sense. Fuck her though. 8th grade! What do you mean my fucking controller disconnected? Shut the fuck up. 8th grade, I had a racist Spanish teacher. I had to think about it for a second. Skipping, by the way, in these grades, I'm skipping around. Like, I'm skipping through teachers that were bad, but I don't have time to put in the video. Like, I don't. I had an Irish teacher that came from another school. He left, and then he came, and he was the new Spanish teacher for us. I forget who he replaced. And he was quite literally the definition of a white supremacist. Except for Irishmen. And he made that very, very, very well known. Like, to the point that other kids who were white and Irish were uncomfortable in the class. He constantly jacked himself off about how much his previous students loved him, which was a little fucking weird to me, considering, why do you care? And what is going on with my health? Like, it's like being weird or something. I'm not really paying attention because I'm telling these stories, so probably missing shit. But he would go on lectures about how white Irishmen were the best race and the strongest race and the most resilient, and that Irish people went through the worst. And I'm not belittling the history of Irish people in the slightest. I'm just saying he was constantly talking about how white Irishmen were the best people to be, that you could be around, that could exist in any way, in looks, in intelligence, everything. Just blatantly racist. Like, not even in an exaggeration either. Like, we had sometimes half-an-hour lectures about how great Irishmen were and how everybody should love Irishmen and how you should aspire to be like a white Irish man. You can guess what he was. He pulled me aside one day, out into the hallway. I was doing very well in his class because I was a smart kid. Education was not hard for me. I was a book smart kid, I should say. It was never hard for me to figure it out, ever. Spanish came to me very easily as well. I always excelled well in Spanish. I had very weird Spanish teachers. Very strange. I had one Spanish teacher that was somewhat normal. And even she was kind of weird. So, it's not a surprise, but I still did well in Spanish despite that. And he pulled me aside into the hallway one day and goes, I'm so surprised and shocked by you, and I'm very impressed. And I said, okay, why? And he said, well, with your setback, my setback. Can you guess what my setback is? Doesn't matter because he's going to tell me. I would have thought as a black kid that you would have been significantly worse, that you would have done worse, you wouldn't have been so well spoken or intelligent. But you're doing so well, you're going to impress people with your skills as a black student doing so well in education. I can't make this up. Oh, I got a health down. What is going on with my pills? Oh no. And I had no idea what to say. Like, what do you say to that? I want you to put in the comments what you say to that. So I thanked him because he kind of scared me, to be honest with you. I don't want to die again. I'm pretty close to the end here. If we could go ahead and stay alive, it'd be nice. And he told me to keep up the good work and that life is going to be very hard for me, but if I keep trying to be smart and working against this like inherent horrible thing that was happening to me, I would be successful. And I remember telling my friend this, and my friend was like, yeah, that can't stay between us. Like, that's gonna have to go to the office. He literally can't be that racist. And I was like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I don't want to get him in trouble, like, whatever. But somebody said something, because he started getting in trouble. And I think it was because other kids were starting to become very uncomfortable with the way he spoke to me in class, and the way that he spoke to us about white guys. White Irish guys. I think everybody was starting to get sick of it. He actually got fired that year. I've never had another teacher get genuinely let go. Well, except for the one that was molesting children, and then the school got found out that they were protecting him. But he got arrested off the school grounds, so that's a little bit different. But he was fired. Like, when it was the end of the year, he had to leave after. And he went on this whole rant about how we're ungrateful and we're going to miss him so much. And all of his old students still email him wanting him back. And how we are making a mistake. Like a breakup, basically. But we're children. So just really fucking weird, to be honest with you. And I remember he threw us a party with like chips and snacks and stuff. And then kind of yelled at us for getting him fired. And then left. So I don't know what he's doing now. And I hope he's having the day that he very, very, very much deserves. And I don't think that's a good one. So we'll see. You never know, right? Maybe he changed. Maybe he's a fucking Nazi now. I have no idea. He was on that level. It was getting there. So that was 8th grade. There are a couple other teachers I had in 8th grade. I had another bad math teacher, but she wasn't like horrible. She was just kind of bitchy because I needed extra help. Once again, fuck you. Don't do that. Don't be a teacher if you can't help kids. It's 9th grade. 9th grade was relatively normal. I had one math teacher that didn't want to teach, so she gave us a book and said that we should be able to teach ourselves. Luckily, in high school, I gained the ability to switch classes, and that's exactly what the fuck I did. I went to the guidance counselor, and I was like, I'm not dealing with that. Straight up. And switched classes. So 9th grade was relatively normal. High school is when I started really falling in love with my teachers, both figuratively and literally, because I had problems, and some of my teachers most definitely took advantage of that, and a lot of them didn't. High school, I met teachers that saved my life. I was a very suicidal kid, And I had teachers that I will never forget, that I still miss to this day, that I want to talk, I would do anything to talk to, that were like my guardians. Like, people would treat me terribly, and they just did everything they could to protect me. And so high school gets a little bit better, because I definitely had some bad teachers in high school. The school officer was a fucking asshole who kept telling me to smile more. There was one teacher I didn't even have that would be like, smile more, princess, you'll be prettier. That, you know, creepy comments that you just don't make towards children. But high school mellowed out quite a bit. Ninth grade was fine. My gym teacher was an asshole. But my gym teacher was an asshole except for one guy for all of high school, because it was only 3 teachers, and one was Mr. Hooker. And fuck you, Mr. Hooker. Also, I'm gonna go back in time a little bit. Fuck you to the other math teacher that also did driver's ed, that treated me like literal dog shit and then choked on nuts. And instead of saying I'm choking on peanuts, said I'm choking on penis. And I laughed in his face. So, fuck you. Anyways, 10th grade was also pretty normal. I had pretty normal teachers in 10th grade, I would say. 11th grade was also pretty normal. There were very few teachers I had that were really horrific. And like, most of my teachers were supportive and pretty good in high school. Some of them were definitely bitchy. I had an art teacher I couldn't fucking stand. She was so cunty, and not in the good way. I had a lot of teachers that were a little inappropriate sometimes, especially because, you know, like, young teenage girls are flirting with you or whatever, and like, some teachers take advantage of that in a little bit of a way, but not like in the sense that I would go back and fucking get them in trouble or something, you know what I mean? Like, as much as it's not okay, at the same time, like, it wasn't so bad that I was in danger. I still have notes and letters from my teachers that they wrote me that mean the world to me in high school. I really befriended a lot of my teachers. If they were having a bad day, I'd always ask them what was wrong. I always checked in on them. They checked in on me. High school changed the way I looked at teachers a little bit, because I finally was being taken care of as a student. And I had my life threatened in high school. I was severely bullied. People would I couldn't even stay in some of my classrooms because people would throw sharpened pencils at me, scissors, other school supplies, paper. They would yell at me across the classroom so I couldn't hear the teacher. So there were some classes I couldn't even sit in, because I grew up in such a racist town, and some teachers did nothing, and some teachers went out of their way to do something. And so high school changed my life. I owe everything to Mr. Simos. If you ever see this, I fucking died. No, I was at the end. I can wrap up the story now, though. I've been filming for fucking 40 minutes. Jesus. Mr. Simos, you changed my life probably the most. And Mr. Fry equally. You guys are both everything to me in high school, and you're probably not watching this video, but if you are, I love you both very dearly. I'll never forget anything that you guys did for me. You were there when life was not easy, which it never was for me as a kid, and it still isn't, but you were there all the time, every time I needed you. So thank you. Mrs. Albury was a great teacher. Mr. Fry was a great teacher. Mr. Simos, Mr. Gates treated me very well. Mr. Hamilton was a great teacher. I had a great teacher that he wasn't my teacher, but Mr. Sullivan was lovely. Mr. Mulvey was nice to me. You know, there were a lot of teachers in high school that changed the way that I looked at life in general and reminded me of things that I probably would have never thought of. And when I was in sticky situations, whether it be at home or with friends or abuse, whatever was going on, they were there for me. So, I definitely had some crazy teachers in high school that were fucking unhinged. I had a Spanish teacher that asked me if I had AIDS because I was thirsty. Literally, I said, "Can I get some water?" And she said, "Do you have AIDS?" Like it was Dora the Explorer. I literally was like, "What did you just ask me?" because it was so offensive and annoying and rude and just such a disgusting thing to ask a student in front of a classroom. Guess who fucking retired after that year? She did. All my bad teachers retired after I left. None of them stayed, which is so crazy to me. It became a running joke in our grade that if we got a crazy teacher, they were gonna retire that year. And it always ended up being true. But for all the bad teachers I had a lot of good ones that loved me. So, all that to say, to summarize, I've had a couple racist teachers, a couple abusive teachers, a child predator, a couple people who were on the brink of a mental breakdown, I think. Especially that Spanish teacher. She was fucking nuts, literally. A couple teachers who didn't want to teach. A couple teachers who were very clearly going through it in their life and didn't know how to handle it. Some fat-phobic teachers. And then more racism. And then I got some good ones. And it just all kind of mixed together and made this really weird fever dream of a memory of school where I had some of the craziest shit happen in school that just shouldn't have fucking happened. I could tell you so many stories about growing up in that fucking town. It was like Degrassi, except honestly worse because it was real. And I can tell you stories about that school because they were fucking nuts. I'm sorry I didn't get through the Isaac run. I'm very annoyed by that since I tried twice. But I hope it was interesting to hear about what I grew up with teacher-wise, because it was weird. I could have gone into a lot more detail, and I've started this video over a couple times, but, like, it's gonna do what it's gonna do, guys. It is what it is. If you enjoyed the video and you like me talking about specific things while we watch Isaac or I play Isaac, we watch together, give me a like, subscribe, comment down below. What are your thoughts on my teachers, and what kind of teachers did you have? And do you want any more details? Do you want any more extended stories? And what kind of stories would you listen to next? I actually really like telling stories while I play Isaac. I think it makes it fun and enjoyable for me, and maybe hopefully you. But anyways, it's been Nika. I love you all very much. Thank you for all the support. I will talk to you next time. Bye.